Hello everyone! Today I am going to walk you through the steps on how to make your very own Northern Lights winter in a jar with using watercolor techniques, but not necessarily using watercolor paint. So we're going to achieve watercolor techniques using markers. So please follow the steps in this video to make your very own version of this winter Northern Lights in a jar. For this activity, you will need some paper, and you can use watercolor paper or regular paper. You'll need some water, your markers, any kind of markers are okay, a paintbrush of some kind, a pencil, and some kind of plastic. You can use a dinner plate, but a plastic bag or a piece of saran wrap work really good for this. And we'll talk about why in a minute. So for those that don't have watercolor paint, we're going to get that watercolor technique using markers, our plastic, and our paintbrush. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, step one for our winter bottle in a jar Northern Lights painting. We're going to draw the jar. So you can follow along with me, or you can choose one from the internet that makes you happy, but we just basically want to start by filling our page with the outline of a bottle, and this is what we're going to capture our winter in. Okay, so I'm going to start by a little kind of semi-circle or half a circle at the top. That's going to be the mouth of my jar, and draw in pencil so that when you make a mistake we can fix it. Okay, so now I've got this eye shape at the top. Okay, so you can see I've drawn this eye shape at the top. That's going to be the top of my bottle. And I'm going to make these two lines like this and another kind of semicircle. And this is going to be the cork that's in my bottle. All right, now the bottle. So bring the rounded edges, and the bottle can be whatever shape you think you'd like. Like I said, you can copy one from the internet or you can draw your own. I'm just going to draw my own and make it nice and big. And I'm going to bring this out a bit more. Okay, and that's why I'm drawing in pencil, so that I can erase this. All right. And then round on the bottom. Okay, so the first step is to draw my bottle, and now that I've done that, I can start on the next step. Now, friends with watercolor paint, you can use your watercolor paint, but like I said, the purpose of this is to use markers. So we're ready for this is my favorite part of this. We're going to put our Northern Lights watercolor inside our bottle. So think about pictures you've seen of Northern Lights. What colors do you see in the Northern Lights? There's so much, so you can't really go wrong with this. So I'm going to take some pink, and this is where you need your plastic bag. Take your marker and start to make kind of a puddle of color from your marker, just on the plastic bag, okay? And you'll see why in a second. I'm going to do a few of these, thinking about Northern Lights. I think of pink, kind of teal. Ooh, what else do we see in Northern Lights? Purple, maybe blue. You can't really go wrong with this. So pick a handful of colors that really remind you of those Northern Lights colors. So I'm gonna just do, you can see a few different colors right on my plastic bag. So I would say start with 4 or 5 colors. I'm gonna add some red and maybe a dark blue in there. I think makes sense. Okay, now here's the next step and the exciting part. You take your plastic bag and you take your paintbrush and your water, and we're going to make our own watercolor paint. So dip in the water and dip your wet brush in your marker, and you can see it liquefies, it becomes watercolor. And now I can spread this on my jar, and we want it to be a little bit damp. So now I'm going to do a second color. I'm going to do this all at once, and I really want these kind of colors to start to come together. So you can overlap them, you can kind of smear them together, go back in. I'm going to grab some of this darker color. When I think about Northern Lights, I think about all these beautiful colors blending together. So now I'm going to grab some of this green, nice damp brush, and just start to run it here And you can always add more colors, okay? But right now, I'm getting my background for my northern lights. All right. And I think actually, I'm going to add some yellow, maybe just to brighten it up a bit. So I'm going to add some yellow to my plastic bag here. And go back with my wet brush, pick up some of that yellow, and again, just sort of brush it on. And we can overlap these colors because northern lights, they overlap, right? They blur together, they dance, they sing. And we're going to fill this whole jar right now. And it doesn't matter because with our dark marker, we're going to be making our kind of silhouette over top. So right now, just go ahead and fill this in any way that makes you happy. Okay, fill it in with color. You can add a little bit more water if you want to bring those colors together. All right, beautiful, beautiful. I love it. Northern Lights in a bottle. Okay, so the next step, and you can color the cork if you want. I'm going to leave mine empty because I'm going to draw when I fill in the rest. I'm just going to draw on it. So that was the first step. That's the Northern Lights. Now we need to let this dry before we do the next step. So I'm going to let this dry and I'll come back in a few minutes and we can move on from there. Once your beautiful Northern Lights jar is dry, it's time to do the silhouette or the tree outline. So again, start with pencil. And I like to start by thinking about mountains and trees. So you can just start on one side of your jar and just sort of draw a gentle little mountain range, whatever you like, across the bottom. Okay. Then on top of that, I'm going to start to add a few different size lines, just kind of because these are going to be my different trees. So I'm going to make them, these are going to be the tree trunks. So I'm going to start by just drawing a few lines up and down different lengths. Okay. Then you can start to draw kind of the shape of the trees, and each one might be a little bit different. So think about the different types of trees that you're familiar with. What have you seen before? Think about, you could look some up online. Okay. If you're not sure, I like to make mine kind of tall pine trees. I'm going to do another one that's really big here. Maybe it's closer to me in my jar. Okay. So you can just do different sizes, different heights, just a few. There's not really a right or wrong way to do this, because this is what we're going to outline in black in a minute. So this is going to be our Northern Lights in a jar. All right, so just a few more, and you can see I'm not making them beautiful yet. This is just the pencil part. So I'm just drawing in a few different heights. I like some big tall ones, maybe a little tiny one in the front here. It's up to you. Okay. I'm gonna do the pine trees. You can do different types of trees if you want. I like pine trees. Don't forget the trunk. Okay, so now that I've got that planned in, now is time for the silhouette, the actual outlining. So what you're going to do is take your black marker, it doesn't have to be a Sharpie, and you're going to start to gently and carefully outline your trees, okay? And this is the part you want to be careful on, because once it's in marker, you can't go back and erase it. So fill in all of your trees and color them in black to make those shadows in the dark. These trees are just shining in the Northern Lights. Okay, so we're going to fill in these trees, and then we're also going to fill in the bottom. So you can right now kind of fill in this mountain range line and outline your bottle. Okay, and then we're going to fill this in with black, and I'm going to do that right now, and then I'll come back in a minute. Perfect. So now that my silhouette has all been colored in, it's time to add the finishing touches. So I want to make sure that I go in and erase any pencil marks. This is going to make my drawing feel clean and finished, right? We want to have a completed, crisp, clean artwork. So start with that. Then I'm going to outline my bottle just so that the whole thing has a nice frame. And then we'll add the final finishing touches. So let's start with outlining the jar. Okay, and again, use your black marker. Carefully outline the jar and then erase any pencil marks that might be showing. And I'm also going to outline the cork just so that my whole drawing feels finished. Okay, and you can see at the top, I've got the rim of the bottle at the front so that it makes it feel like the cork is actually sitting inside the bottle. Okay, so when you draw yours, just sort of think about that. How does it look so that the cork kind of sits inside? And then I'm also going to color in beside the cork black, just so it feels like it's fit in that bottle. Okay, now the cork. If you've ever seen a cork up close, it's got kind of little imperfections. So you can kind of draw some dots, different sizes if you want. This is just going to make your cork have texture, make it feel a little bit more like an actual cork. Okay, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so now we are almost done. The final step will be just to add a few tiny little highlights to make this feel super finished. If you've ever seen a glass jar or really looked at it, you know how there's light reflections. So I'm going to just draw, and I started with pencil, a couple of those little reflective surfaces that I would see on a glass jar. So I'm going to start with black, but you're welcome to use white if you have it, or even white paint, or even something like whiteout. So you can see I've got a white pencil crayon here, but it's not really showing up. So I'm going to show you the difference between using a white pencil crayon and then using something like whiteout or white paint to just really make those highlights pop. And also, because this is a wintertime scene, you might also want to add a few little snowflakes in there. So I'm going to show you what that looks like, and then this will be completed and ready to hang up. Okay, so I've got some white paint. Now, like I said, if you don't have white paint, you can even use whiteout. Even a white, like chalk, will work good for this. So I'm going to take a little bit of white, and you'll see how it really makes the jar feel shiny. It really makes it feel glossy and glassy, which is what we want. So I'm going to just add a tiny bit of white to the top, and this is just kind of a finishing touch highlight to really make the jar feel like it's glass. Okay, so that's why I'm doing this. Really make it feel like it's glassy. Okay, beautiful. Now, last but not least, I want to add, like I said, it's winter time. So I want to add a few snowflakes, and you can do as many as you want, but I'm going to just add a few kind of snowflakes. And you can do splatter paint if you're comfortable with that. I'm not going to do that because it's a bit messy, but you could do as many snowflakes and as big and as small as you wanted. So I'm just going to do different sizes kind of all throughout my jar. Few here, here, and again, you can have as many in there as you want or as few as you want. But I think that looks great and just adds a little bit of magic into my jar. Perfect. Okay, there we go. There's your completed Northern Lights winter in a jar.